A classic American Italian rum cake is something I feel like every Italian soul body person, and that just means that if you in your soul feel like you got a little Italian in you, you need to know how to make it. I'm going to show you how to make my recipe, which I really feel like it is the most excellent recipe for this ever. It's easy. It does have a few steps because we have to make a sponge, we have to make a custard, and it does have to sit. I prefer it to sit overnight, but the results are sensational. We have St. Joseph Day around the corner, March 19th, if you know, you know. This needs to be on the table alongside your zeppoli. They just do. I don't know what to tell you, but they just do. So let me show you how to make it. We're gonna do a little bit backwards. We're gonna start with the custard first because it needs to cool completely. So does the cake, but the custard has to go in the fridge for a while. And it's very simple. This is my classic crema pasticcera, which is an Italian custard that goes for pretty much everything we make. Depending on what it's going in, if it's going in a fruit tart, in my zeppoli, San Giuseppe, St. Joseph zeppolis, I add a little cornstarch for structure. If needed to be more of custard-like, I don't. So that's the only thing that really changes, but it is the most foolproof custard ever. And I'll show you how to make a pan di Spagna, which is Italian sponge cake, really. And it's a base for all of our cakes. So I'm gonna run you through it. First things first, into a large saucepan, I'm going to add some milk. And I'm gonna bring this to a simmer. It doesn't have to boil. It does need to come up to a simmer. To it, I'm gonna add 2 strips of lemon zest. We will remove this. It's not gonna taste like a heavy lemon cake at all, but something about the essence of lemon, when it meets the rum, it brings the rum alive, and it's sensational. So I'm gonna add that in, and while that happens, in a bowl, I'm going to add egg yolks and some sugar. I'm gonna go ahead and use a handheld whisk to whisk this well. You want this to become really light and frothy and like doubled in volume. So I'm gonna do that by using my handheld whisk, and hopefully I don't catch it on fire, but I might. I'm not gonna. I'll try not to. I'll put it around this thing. And once it's there, I'll show you what it looks like. That looks great. Add in your flour. Woo! It's very loud, and if you're wondering where my battery power one is, it's dead. It's not charged. My own fault. I'm gonna blend in the flour. Then I'm going to take some of the simmering milk, about a ½ cup or so, and I'm gonna drizzle it in here to temper the eggs so that when we add the eggs to the saucepan, they don't curdle, because we don't want scrambled eggs in our custard. So let me just continue to mix this in, and then I'm just gonna take a ladle do a little bit more. This mixer is so powerful. It does not have like a slow or low speed. Now I'm just gonna take this, add it to that. All in there, and you're gonna be really careful. Now, if you wanna add a vanilla bean pod, you could add it right in. If you wanna add a splash of vanilla extract, you would do it towards the end. I'm actually going to use Italian vanilla because when I make Italian pastry cream, which is essentially what this is my Nonna's recipe. I've been eating this my entire life, it feels like. I will add an envelope of Italian vanilla powder. My Nonna told me once that when they were little, a treat, because it was expensive to make, they would have this custard and they would put it on sliced stale bread and then would have that as like a treat if they had any left over, which I thought was quite sweet. So I'm gonna babysit this over gentle heat. It does not need to be high heat. Gentle, because you don't want to scorch the bottom. This is gonna take 5 to 6 minutes to cook and thicken. So you don't just want this to thicken, because that can happen in a minute or so, but you actually want the flour to cook out. You want that egg to cook, so the egg yolks to cook. So just take your time. You can really smell the lemon, and it's gonna be fantastic. That looks fantastic. I'm gonna just turn it off. To that, I'm going to add a pinch of salt, really important. And I'm gonna add my vanilla. Add that right in. You could have added it earlier, but it's okay. The heat is just gonna Bring it to life. Stir that in. Oh, it smells so good. So good. Oh my. Okay, now set that aside. Half of your custard is going to be just the plain custard, and then the other half is going to be kissed by chocolate. It's not going to be heavily chocolate, kissed by chocolate. I like using a good quality like bar of chocolate for this. You need about 2 ounces. I'm using a Ghirardelli semi-sweet chocolate. And I'm going to this is a 4-ounce bar, so I'm just going to use half of it. And I'm going to break it up into small pieces and put it at the bottom of this bowl. It may not look like a lot, but remember, this is just kissed by chocolate. It gives you a little bit of a bitter edge, which goes really well with the rum. And this does have rum in it. If you don't want to use rum, you can use a rum extract in place of the actual rum that we're using later. But to be fair, I feel like if you can't use rum, I just wouldn't make it at all because it doesn't have the same flavor profile to me. You have your 2 bowls. I'm going to just take my lemon peel right out. Let me find the other one. Is it going to be easy to find? Or is she going to be difficult to find? Now, I will say this. You should be straining this in case you burnt anything or you scorched anything. I feel pretty confident that my custard is perfect, so I'm not going to strain it. Half of it will be vanilla. The other half, you're going to pour over the chocolate and you let that sit for a minute because the heat from the custard is going to melt the chocolate. So let that sit and then we'll whisk it in. Before I whisk that up, I'm just going to cover my custard. You want to do this right away, and you want to make sure that your plastic wrap is actually touching the custard itself so that it doesn't form that dry layer of skin on top of it. And now I'm going to take the chocolate with a whisk and just give that a nice little whisk. Beautiful. And now you're going to do the same thing to this. You're going to cover it with the plastic wrap, making sure the plastic wrap is touching the custard itself, and then you're going to pop it into the fridge to cool completely. And while that happens, we're gonna make the cake part. To make the sponge, this is called a pan di Spagna, which is the Italian sponge cake base recipe. You always serve it with some kind of boozy berry or a limoncello drizzle or a rum soak or something, because it can be a bit dry because there's no fat in it with the exception of eggs. There's no butter, there's no oil. It's just an all-purpose sponge cake that layers really well with other things, and it's just a classic that is the only really sponge cake that I've eaten my whole life as like a base cake. In a bowl, I was counting. Yeah, in a bowl, you need 6 eggs. This is the same recipe. My mom, my nonna, my Aunt Sexy, yes, that's what we call my aunt, we use my whole life. Sugar, a tiny bit of lemon zest, not much. Again, you're not gonna eat this and think, oh, lemon cake. You're gonna eat it and it's just gonna make that rum not seem so heavy. It's just gonna bring some brightness to it, and it's fantastic. And then you just need cake flour, which is important. So make sure you're grabbing cake flour and a splash of vanilla or a little envelope of vanilla. My envelopes are upstairs. I'm just using vanilla extract and a pinch of salt. The important thing is that you whip or whisk the eggs and sugar together for a while to really aerate and add some life into those eggs and sugar so that you get really beautiful lift when you go to bake your cake. So just give this a few minutes, especially with the lemon in there, because it's really going to awaken those oils in the lemon zest. See how gorgeous those look? Now I'm going to add in my cake flour and my salt along with a splash of vanilla, which I could have done earlier, but it's okay. It's okay. My oven's preheated to 350. I'll talk about my pan in just a minute. I just want to get this well incorporated, but don't overmix. Cake batter looks fantastic. What I have here is an 8-inch springform cake pan. Really important because it's going to make it easier for you to get it out, and make sure it's 8 inches, because if it's 9 inches, it's going to come out a lot flatter and it's not quite the same. You want to either oil, spray, butter the bottom portion, not the sides. So it's important that you're using a non-stick, pan, but don't butter or oil or spray the sides so that when your cake rises, it doesn't also fall right away. It almost looks like, to me, the way I describe it, it's like the cake is like holding on to the walls for dear life and it's not going to fall. You know what I mean? It's really important. So I'm going to just go ahead and take this, pour it in here, just like that. Gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. This is going to go into a preheated oven, like I said, at 350. And here's something that you need to keep in mind. You don't want to open the oven door for at least 20 minutes. This cake takes about 25 minutes in the oven, almost to a T. Leave it in there for 25 minutes until it's cooked all the way through. Turn the oven off at 25 minutes. Open the oven slightly. Let it sit in there with the oven off and the door open a bit for 5 minutes and then take it out completely. It's that slowly bringing the heat down that's going to keep your cake from falling too quickly. So make sure you do that. Everything will be written in the recipe portion on the website anyway, but just keep that in mind. It's really important. So 25 minutes, turn the oven off, open the door a little, keep it in there 5 minutes, then take it out completely. Let it cool completely. We are going to make the rum syrup, and we're going to do it now so that it can cool, set aside. Everything needs to be ready for building and layering and assembling at the same time. So like I told you, it's not difficult. Don't misunderstand the difference between difficult and time consuming, but there's a few steps. In a small saucepan, I'm going to add water, granulated sugar. You need it. You're going to bring this to a simmer until the sugar melts. This is my rum. Very good rum. My brother-in-law made this rum, so I'm very partial. I'm very partial to it. It's our last bottle that we have that he made for us. You want really good dark rum. Like I said, if you want to make this cake but you don't consume alcohol, I'm gonna suggest you use a rum extract. If you don't want to use that, I don't think it's as good. I'm just going to be very honest with you. I don't think it's as good. I would just suggest you make a different cake entirely, because the whole point of this cake is that it's soaked in a rum syrup. It's boozy. It's strong but palatable, and you can definitely decrease the amount of rum. I like to use 1/3 of a cup of rum. You can use 1/4 of a cup if you don't like it as strong. If you like it very strong, aka like Joe and my mother, you would use 1/2 a cup of rum. But I think 1/3 of a cup is perfect. So I'm just going to wait for that to melt, the sugar to melt, let it cool slightly, and I'm going to add the rum to it. Sugar and water dissolved, cooled a bit. Should probably cool all the way, but I'm not going to. Adding my rum, and now I really am going to set this aside. I actually like to place it in let's put some water in it, a measuring cup, and just let that cool. That's it. Well, that's she's filled. She's full. We're gonna set that aside, let it cool. By the time the cake is cold, the custard's cold, reassemble. Cake is fully cooled, and I lied to you. I meant to say 35 minutes, not 25 minutes. My bad, okay? Please do forgive me. 35 minutes, mine took about 37 minutes, so between 35 and 40. Turn the oven off, open the door 5 minutes, let it cool 5 minutes, take it out, let it cool completely. And that is what it looks like. I'm gonna take a sharp knife and I just run it around the edge like that. Okay, just loosen it. And then we release it. There we go. If any spots is stuck anywhere, just give it a little helping hand. Okay, now this is, keep this handy, you're gonna use it again. This is the hardest part for me, okay? First of all, I need to grab parchment paper. This is the hardest part for me because I have to cut this evenly and I'm just not good at it. I have parchment paper under here, but sometimes the edges do stick, so just take your time. I have to cut this into 3 equal slices, and I'm really not good at that. So I'm gonna do my best to make them as even as possible. Here we go. Even as possible, taking the parchment out from the back, from the bottom, Okay, and before we even mess with this, this is what I like to do. I like to take a piece of parchment paper, another piece of parchment paper, put it down like that, and it actually protects the cake. I know it looks messy, but you just have to trust me, it works. Close it back up. There we go. So that like nothing leaks through or anything like that. Do I look insane to you right now? Probably. I'm also very, very cold at the moment. Have this handy, set it aside. You're gonna cut this into 3 equal pieces. This is so not gonna be great, but just bear with me, okay? So you have, rotate. That is, actually did not do a bad job. I did not do a bad job placing the bottom part back into my pan, okay? But I find it easier because this has to sit overnight, and I find it much easier to do it this way. Now, this is, by the way, the most perfect sponge. It really is. You want it to be still at room temperature, slightly warm, so it absorbs really nicely. It will be drenched in rum syrup. So you're gonna put a good amount on your bottom layer. Just wait for it to soak in, edge to edge. Chocolate custard goes on the bottom. Okay? It might be easier for you to grab a small spoon or a small offset spatula, whatever you have. By the way, I put a sweater on because I am cold. Okay? I'm cold. Try to get that looking nice. Try to get it as even as possible. My aunt would use a piping bag for this, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna use a piping bag until the end when we decorate it with whipped cream, but I'm certainly not gonna do it right now. Okay, chocolate layer is on. Try to make it as even as possible. Middle layer, more rum. Sorry if my mic gets covered by my sweater. It's either that or I freeze, okay? And I don't know about you, but I know you don't want me to freeze. I know you don't. Vanilla. You can use, by the way, a 9-inch pan if you don't have an 8-inch pan. It won't be as tall. It won't be as, I like to call it magnificent. It'll be thinner layers. Which will taste great, but it is different. Like, it's really hard to explain why it's different or how it's different. It just feels different when you take a bite of it and it's thinner layers. Perhaps maybe it's just like the ratios just don't feel the same. I don't know. I don't know. That's mine. Okay. You are going to soak this layer, but like upside down, you know? Leave a little bit of the rum syrup for the top. And this will be soaked. Like I said, this is not, this is like a wet, not wet, but you'll see what I mean. If you've ever had rum cake before, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I am talking about. Try not to drown my hand in the syrup. That's nice. Put this on. Like that. And then I like to come in here, do a bit of this all over the top, because I'm gonna just take a little bit of the syrup and just pour it and let it soak in the very top, you know? Now it's time to cover, and it needs to rest. Minimum of a couple of hours. I think best overnight. Up to 24 hours is splendid. All of those flavors meld. The texture is perfect. It's just the way it needs to be. It is next level. We are going to cover this in a slightly sweetened whipped cream. Top it with some maraschino cherries. You can use amarenas, but maraschino seems just right for this. You don't have to weigh it down. You don't have to put a plate on it with weights, none of that. It somehow does magical things as it sits in the fridge, and it is so splendid, it's spectacular, and I'm so excited for you to see what it looks like when it's there. So I'm gonna just let this rest. I'm gonna go rest myself and I will show you what it looks like after it's had its time, and then we'll finish her off. Cake has been sitting overnight and she is ready to make her debut, but what we need is a perfect sweetened, lightly sweetened whipped cream that is going to cover this baby. And it's really easy. You're gonna need heavy cream, obviously, and some powdered sugar. There's also an additional ingredient I like to use. I'm not using it just yet. You want to add it towards the end. 1 teaspoon of instant vanilla pudding. I know not quite traditional, but to make stabilized whipped cream, a whipped cream that's not going to eventually like break apart and basically like melt as it sits in the fridge, you would need to use like some kind of gelatin or something like that, which I find kind of finicky to work with. But if you use a teaspoon of instant vanilla pudding, it does the exact same thing. It gives you that perfect structure that stays on your cake, does not melt, does not fall apart, does not break. It can sit in the fridge for days. So I'm gonna whisk this up until it develops like almost stiff peaks, and then we're gonna add in the 1 teaspoon of this, but I'll show you what it looks like when it's near there. It's starting to thicken. I'm gonna add my vanilla pudding. I'm just gonna keep going until it fully thickens. I wanna show you something. You see right here, there's a little bit of seepage going on. This is why I lay the parchment paper in there the way that I do. It's to catch anything that drips over, which can happen, but don't let that scare you. I mean, it's just, you know, it can happen and it's totally fine because you've got all that liquid in there. Because like I said, it's a wet-ish cake, but that's why I do it. Because I know some of you are thinking, has she lost her mind? But you know there's a method to my madness. I don't do anything without a reason. You know, look at how beautiful. Wow, that's gorgeous. Okay, let me get a plate really quickly, just because I need to take this off and I find it easier to do this and then place it on my serving platter like that. I'll just destroy the top a little bit, but that's okay. You're never gonna see the top. The top, you're never gonna see her. Oh, mamma mia, I'm looking for something. I'm gonna use this. Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit of this whipped cream because I'm gonna form little rosettes, place them in my piping bag here. Not much, I'm just gonna form a few rosettes on the very top. Okay, set that aside. Then I'm gonna take the rest of this whipped cream, start in the middle with a little spatula, make it all around, and then I'm gonna bring it down, and then you're gonna do one of these like that. Take your time. This is just not my favorite thing to do. It's not my favorite part of this whole operation, but worth it in the end. Trust me. Make your rosettes. Remember, it does not have to be perfect. Your piping, now this is not, listen, this is not a bakery. This is my least favorite part to do when it comes to any cake, is the decoration portion of it. I don't like it. I do it, but I don't mean I like it, you know? Then we're gonna take some, do you guys say maraschino or maraschino? What do you say? You tell me. Put them all around, which makes just about any single thing look retro. I like to take them out. You could do them with the stems or without the stems. I like to take them out for a bit and place them on a little paper towel just to absorb any of that excess syrup. And then that way it's not like bleeding all throughout your cake. This is so good. This is so special. And then I take, remember the leftover bar of chocolate that we used? I just take like a grater, a coarse grater, and grate it all over the top. You can shave it and do something super fancy and pretty. Oh, mamma mia! I forgot one of the most important parts. My toasted almonds. Could you imagine? This is why you follow me, okay? This is why you follow me, because I admit my mistakes. Let me go grab my toasted almonds because it was about to be bad down here, okay? Because if I forgot to put those on, I would not be able to upload this recipe for you. So let me go grab those and I'll be right back. You cannot have this cake without having toasted sliced almonds alongside. And I cannot believe I will skip that part. These are just lightly toasted. You can do them in a pan, you can do them in the oven as long as they're lightly golden all around. And these are just gonna go sort of all around the sides, okay? Just have the whipped cream help you. And then what you can do is you can shake them off and just keep going until the side has tons of almonds all around. And I'll clean it up and I'll show you how nice it looks. Bit more chocolate. And that is good to go. And because of that whipped cream, by the way, I ate 9 pounds of almonds as I was doing this. Because that whipped cream has that bit of pudding in it, it will stay in the fridge so perfectly. Wait till you see this, y'all. Just wait till you see it. You ready? Oh, that crunch. Please, okay? Please. Humor me, okay? Humor me. Tell me she is beautiful. I'm in love with this. It's delicious. It looks like a bakery style cake. Like you just went down to South Philly, you got this cake, you're bringing it home, and you're about to have the time of your life. I know I'm about to have the time of my life. Okay, I don't know about you, but I'm gonna have the time of my life. Look at this. It's just so beautiful. Almond. You guys. You want the perfect Italian rum cake? You get the perfect Italian rum cake. You've got to make it. I know you will love it. There is no if, what's, buts, or whatever's about it. It has your name written all over it. Go to laurainthekitchen.com for the written recipe. Make it a new tradition in your household, in your family, that you're going to bring Italian rum cake to every family event. Hope you've enjoyed spending time with me. I will see you in the next one. Bye. Come on.